Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Hyper Light Drifter. If you remember from last time, we had cleared the western forest all the way up to the 3 major module door, and now we proceed inwards. The game just released with a 60 FPS upgrade, and while it is incredibly smooth and plays very well, it messed up my fraps a little bit, so there are a few times a bit of a slowdown in this update. I apologize for that. I have actually, about midway through, switched back to a 30 FPS. So while I myself will play in delicious, creamy 60 FPS for your viewing pleasure, or until I get a better laptop, we're switching back to the 30s. So this is the point at which I would say the forest really starts to throw a lot at you. And it happened a bit last time. Both in terms of the volume of encounters and the difficulty. You can already see that there are quite a few more enemies than we encountered at the beginning, and finding levels that are just packed, arenas that are packed, will sort of be the norm from here on out. However, as you will see in just a minute, that is not the frustrating part about the very westernmost part of the forest. I like when you get sort of a head's eye or a heads up view, people like that. I like to imagine they were standing still waiting for your move and just didn't think about grenades. One of the things I mentioned in the last update, something they came across in this game, was that you can't put too many enemy types together that have very different movesets, or things get confusing in a hurry. And I think these big arenas really demonstrate that well. It's not too bad fighting dogs on their own, and it's not too bad fighting, you know, the gunmen or the charging swordsmen. All of them have techniques, you know, that they lead you by a certain amount, you know right where to go, but you put them all together and you run into trouble. Okay, here's those floor spikes. The time I hit them there, that was my fault, but this is just sort of demonstrating the frustration that I find in, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just bad, but dealing with these trap crystals or whatever, they just knock you around, and sometimes they, you know, just jump past your invincibility frames and leave you vulnerable. You can go from full health to dead in just 3 hits by them, so it's, the more you encounter them, the worse, generally. Games like this, I find, don't necessarily do well with a lot of like precision movement. It's interesting because you want to have precision movement for fights, and in there everything feels really kind of organic. You know, where you need to be varies in response to where your enemies are, and you feel like you're in a big fight. But when it comes to stationary traps, for whatever reason, having to move with them and, you know, move around them, it just ends up feeling really frustrating. So I wish there had been a little bit less trap stuff, especially in this western area. This is really the only of the 4 areas where we run into that a lot. Minor point. The other thing they are very big on in this level is having waves of enemies come at you when you explore a new part of a level, especially, so, you know, if you're going through this methodically clearing everything out, then you'll get a series of medium encounters. If I had rushed here and not cleared out the enemies up top first, there would have been just a huge wave when I came back. The thing that I appreciate about the big brawls is they really do encourage you to use all of the skills, upgrades, guns, you know, rushing, abilities that you've found so far. Honestly, the combat in the northern areas and the eastern areas ends up feeling a little easy by the time you get all this mobility, all these skills, and so ramping it up like this in the western and then the southern areas as well will be this way. It makes you feel like there's a point to everything you've collected, which, you know, I really appreciate. It's pretty big talk for somebody that's hanging on with like 1 life bar for that last little bit there. There's a key door to the south you might have seen there that was, it's hard to notice for me for some reason. I don't think I saw it quite just yet. We'll get it on the way back, but it's one of those things where because there isn't an indent or anything like that, it ends up being just more or less invisible to me. we've got, I guess at we are fast approaching anyway. Oh, we got at the end of the last update all of the dash upgrades and the sword upgrades and everything like that. So from here on out, it's there is one further health pack upgrade we can get, and besides that, it's all going to be gun upgrades, just more bullets for the gun, and you know that is very welcome, of course. The longer you can go without absolutely needing to engage in close range combat, the better. I'd say the western area, and this part in particular, probably feels the most like Bloodborne to me out of any part of the game, just because this is, you know, you're in sort of a large city complex, whatever this place is. We've talked about it a bit before, maybe being a army base or prison or something like that. And certainly there are elements of all those things in here. But it's big, there's lots of different places to go, there's lots of things that kind of seem like they might be paths forward, but instead are dead ends. What's more frustrating to me than running into a lot of dead ends before you proceed is finding the right path first, because then you've got to keep in mind where all the dead ends are that you missed and go back and find everything, assuming you are a crazy person like me who wants to 100% things as much as possible, of course. I think this is going to put us, yes, at 5, so very few to go. We will, of course, be finishing up the 8-module door this time. For whatever reason, it's really hard. The spacing is kind of tight to get up through this tree. I did it really well there. We'll see when I try to go back down how very tight it is. And this just sort of demonstrates how the camera can betray you a bit at times. I don't think there's anything important up there, but because of the way that the camera was, I spent a little bit of time looking. Well, so it goes. The forest is extremely pretty. I like all those glowing berries or whatever they're supposed to be. Now look at this. I'm from my perspective, taking every possible entryway down here to get through the tree. But whatever weird kind of direction, maybe you need to be going at a diagonal or something to make it out. I honestly don't know, but I was worried I'd have to restart the recording there. You do get a real sense of being sort of transiently passing through these ruins. One of the things that I think is interesting is there are some things that you can interact with. I mean, you pick up keys. Is that key door? You pick up keys, but most of your tech and your techniques all come from town. And most of what you're getting out here are those pieces of 8, the doubloons, which, check out these old rusty guns out here. That's kind of neat. Which, you know, we're not exactly sure what it is that they do, but most of the tech that's in these places is either, you know, decayed long past the point of being useful, or just isn't frankly useful to us. We are very much a drifter, just sort of passing through, you know, as opposed to being a treasure hunter out to reclaim the lost riches of this civilization. Waste a grenade there. Obviously, our moveset is at least partially inspired by old samurai and ninja films where we, you know, run at somebody and slice them and then pass through them and then they, I don't know, get a big old cut and fall over. I guess we decapitate them in this case. But we really don't have just a purely Japanese feel to us. I don't feel that way, at least. We certainly are Ronin-esque, but not only that. Alright, only one more key to find, and we will have found all of them from this area. I'm doing way better on keys than I did on my first playthrough. I had to go back and do a lot of sorting. Notice the raccoon motif, I think, in a lot of these areas, which is interesting, as we haven't encountered too many of them types. The crystal soldiers seem to be fairly definitively occupying this area. Notice that there's still a major module back there. Thanks, of course, to the awesome guy for pointing out where a few of those are. That guy is so cool. I know I say it a lot, but he really is the best. Check out these lighted walkways. I mean, clearly this was an area meant for something besides just pure military necessity. I'll go into this more when we do our close-up look on the west side here, of course. But, just minor notes for now. So you wonder if they can emerge from the crystals. You know, are they voluntarily in there? What is keeping them? Is it for protection? Is it, you know? I don't know. Certainly the little goblins don't really seem to like being in there much. Okay. Secret passage within a secret area. I like that little goblin ambush. You know, they were just creeping in a bush waiting for that to happen. It's just so good. I need to be using the projectile deflect more than I am. It's interesting going back and watching yourself play later. It's a little frustrating usually, but, you know, armchair generals and all that. So I can go down south, but before I do that, I think I'm going to clear out the rest of this area. See all that there is to see. Again, getting everything, you know, making sure you get everything all the way to the end is a bit of a mania of mine. It makes for a more satisfying gameplay experience, I like to think. What's up, Skeleton? Just chilling on his bench there. Can't find any pattern in the differently lit up boxes that they had, like you can see on the motif on the back wall there. I know we've seen things like that in the northern area and then down here as well. If it's supposed to be some sort of code, if it's some sort of language, I don't know how deep the linguistics of this game goes. I know that there is sort of a replacement cipher that they use on the monoliths, although that's not particularly sophisticated and is easily cracked by people who just sort of did. I think it's just a one-for-one replacement. So who knows if they've gone deeper and like encoded stuff in binary or goodness knows what else they might have done. Almost looks like a stall in here, you know, like it's a dirty trick. Putting floor spikes under there. I wonder if this used to be a market, just like the one we have in town before the crystals came. The growths certainly are getting spaced closer together more as we progress westward, sort of northwestward. Oh, look at those buddies. That's a raccoon skeleton for sure, if ever I've seen one. Even got little bony ears on there. Look at that little poker game interrupted by something or other. Looks like they just have iron swords by their side there, not anything high-tech. Anyway. Very good, only 2 to go. This area, of course, the western area, contained the boss that was a big stopping point for me on my first game. It took me forever to beat the guy. I don't know, I wouldn't doubt 20 tries. Which is embarrassing to admit, but there you have it. I'll say more once we get there, but the Bloodborne comparisons are instructive. Dark Souls too, because as in those games, you learn to fear the bosses that are a normal size rather than giant size. Pretty well, by the end of the game anyway. I was going to say early on, but all the early bosses tend to be giant. And it's been 2 giants so far, and we've fought Mr. Toad and Bird Boss. Bird Brain, the bird. Although the bird was actually quite small. He was piggybacking on that Shadow Man, as you remember, but that was more for comedy purposes. For some reason, this area in here reminds me of the old NES game Illusion of Gaia. which was also a fantastic game and one of my all-time favorites ever. I don't know. I could just imagine some of that music. I should do a Let's Play of that. There's probably one out there, but man, that was a good game. Nothing else here. And I have a sinking feeling, as well as foreknowledge, that it's just about showtime. Alright. So, this guy has a very particular set of moves that he does, as do most bosses. And I'll be going through those in as much detail as I can. Obviously, the fights move very quickly, but fighting him on normal, and then in New Game Plus in particular, you really need to get his moveset down. It's a really cool arena, by the way. And of course the music is as awesome as ever. Alright, he runs at you and flips at you a couple times. He does a 1-2 swipe to begin with. First swipe takes off 1 hit point, second swipe takes off 2. Eventually he'll run to the center of the arena, do this little ground pound that shoots out spikes at you. Those can be fairly easily dodged. He then shoots those 3 bolts at you, the 3 balls or whatever. The first 2 are just, they fly at you at a standard rate and they just hurt. The third one takes a longer time, but it actually takes off your special gear, or special bar if it hits you, so you definitely want to avoid that. If you hurt him enough, he starts doing 3 jumps after you, which covers an enormous amount of area. I think when I first played the game, he actually ran after you faster, and here I'm in a bad state because I am out of health. So that was the first try. I did way better than I did my first time here. Key, of course, is keeping calm and not just flipping out and running away. You want him to miss you with his second swipe there, unlike he does there, so that you can start winding up and do a big attack right as he's running at you. You can either dash just out of his way, or you can dash once while he does his first attack at you, and then dash back again. And dash past him, I guess, while he's doing his second or third swipe, depending on what it is. That puts you in a good position to hit him. Obviously, he summons those guys as well. I never pay them too much attention, because I don't think they're normally ranged guys. So, these guys, their tail is so big. Sort of stay near them or whatever, or just stay away from them. That's about all there is to it, honestly. It's the kind of thing where once you get it down, it's not so bad. I think if I had, fought this guy again, it would have gone even better. But, as long as you remember exactly where he is and what he's about to do, you'll always be ready. Most bosses in this game, you're not going to do well improvising, but there we go. Not bad at all. And, yeah. Second try. Certainly better than I've done in the past. You can see my little celebration there. He's really, he doesn't have a ton of health. The problem comes in New Game Plus, where, again, many times you have to take a perfect fight against the guy, which makes it just ridiculous. He has a gory death, too. Pretty grisly. Anyway, he drops that little pistol there. The noisy cricket or whatever. We'll see that used later. It's pretty fun. Not my favorite gun, but very effective. I won't say anything against it. This is the part here that convinced me to finally switch off 60 FPS. I apologize, by the way, for any little stuttering we've had so far. But, our standard Black Rain. Our standard Spooky Man. Spooky Man. Making us a cool man. Again, notice that they seem to be basically showing us a moveset with that, which is interesting. Just like our buddy, we are in a real bad way at this point. Whatever sickness we've got is fairly well progressed. There's that old switch again, I think, out of 60 FPS. Not bad. 3 out of 4. I was kind of hoping to first try that guy, but in a way I'm glad I didn't, just so you can see that he is in fact quite dangerous. I mean, he will wreck you if you're not ready. If you're not getting his patterns down, basically. Get his patterns down and he's pretty gentle. The big guys, what is interesting is they seem a bit more random sometimes, because they'll have definite movement patterns, but they're so big they just crash into the walls of the arena all the time. This guy's small enough that you can actually kite him around and know where he's going to be in a more or less definitive way. That's the advantage to fighting small guys. So another interesting thing about this level is once you beat the boss, you are not quite out of the woods like you are. Even for just getting back to the regular place, they make you pass through one of these darkened regions. Bunch of like totem poles in here or something. It's hard to know what's going on with this area. Check out the pit to nowhere. Whatever this was, it used to look probably was just a huge bridge over a pit at one point in time. And now that bridge is falling apart. As with most darkened areas, there are of course secrets to be mined and boxes to break, which is, important. So I'm told. Those little guys I almost feel like are more for flavor, or for catching you if you're absolutely out of like weapons and ammo or something. I don't know. I knew there was a secret somewhere right around here, and it's, I just missed it. We'll be back for it. I'm gonna cut here in a second. It's to the left of right of where I was. Gross little spider dudes is what they are. I wonder if they're associated with the Black Rain. I mean, they've certainly got the same coloration. They look like that big guy that impales us in our dreams, although obviously slightly less frightening. This guy just plain old disappears when you break him out of the crystal, but look at that, he's right back when it reappears. That seems like unending torment, which is kind of a rough bargain. So now I knew I needed to go back for that secret, and cutting out my exploration time, it's right through here, as I said. Just another monolith. There we go. And now there's just some, we're, basically back to normal. So now there's just some, like, housekeeping and a few extra challenges. Here's this old raccoon guy. You can see those cannons were used to fight the Titans, which is interesting. And apparently they had a crystal mancer who blasted one right through the head with his crystals. But, as you can maybe imagine, that seems to have had some side effects, including the creation of a boss, and the freezing of an army, and all of their people are dead. One of those type of downsides. This, by the way, is just a bit to the west and south of the warp point. See how much harder it is just with the bullet guys and those little crystals flying around. Because you want to keep your eye on where the bullets are coming from, but at the same time, if you get stuck in the crystal charges, then you are out of luck. I don't think two crystal guys can hit you at the same time. I think if one crystal spider gets you trapped, then the other ones just circle around you until you break free. Small salts, but, something. They do kind of assume you've gone to the northern area to get the long-range gun. Of course, I could say they assumed that for the eastern area too, so maybe I'll just say, you need to have that long-range gun before you're going to get everything done here. More of those crystals. Fortunately, you don't take any damage if you get stuck in the big ones, so it's always worth the risk to try to get stuck in those. I don't see anything of value in the lower area down there. And unfortunately, all we seem to have is the health pack there. Now here we are by Raccoon Buddy, who told us everything. Goodness knows how he got out of it. Maybe he was traveling at the time, and now he just lives in a fire by his crystallized dead comrades. I'm not going to judge a raccoon. So here is that prison for real. I mean, obviously people are being imprisoned back there. There's actually a lock up here that I missed. I'm going to get in those rooms. Not much down there besides a little piece of eight, but the piece is important. Raccoon Mage, we have to eternally torment to get through there. And the real reason for coming out here is that, that Major. Only one to go, and then we can take on the 8 module challenge for this area, which is a real doozy, I might add. I'll say I make it look a bit easier than it is in this particular playthrough, but it stinks, let me tell you. In fact, the areas, the boss and the final challenge in this area, I spent a lot more time on originally. I don't know if I just got lucky this time, or if I kind of knew what was coming, so I knew roughly what I had to do or something like that. But don't feel bad if you're playing this game and those end up being rough challenges for you. Kind of stink to be trapped in there once the crystals took everything over, and there's just nothing for you to do but starve, I guess. There's no getting out of those pink force fields. I wonder if those have anything to do with the volatile pink liquid that we found in the eastern area, or if pink is just sort of shorthand for power in this game. Could well be. Notice we leave kind of a pink trail behind us when we're drifting on our hyper light. Pink or purple, I guess. Yeah. And there's even a further land beyond there. However, before we go there, like I said, I missed a switch earlier on, and it doesn't do much, but it opens up the lower cells and lets you get in there. And all there really is of value is a piece of eight. That's fine. Anyway, this is right up the elevators where we left off here. Just some further big old arenas. The gold men I like. They're big and stompy. Their attack I'm not quite so fond of, but it works for the area. Provides a high hit point, high threat kind of challenge. Well, look at this. Some kind of awful shadow men, maybe some raccoons there on the one side. And check out that. That guy was totally telling the truth. Their Crystal Mancer did what he did, and he did it good. This is the first time I think we've actually seen how a Titan was stopped, and it may have been the only Titan that was stopped in particular. The other ones all look like they ran out of power or just kind of collapsed or something. Not this one, boy. This was a mage's last stand, I think. And though it doomed the kingdom, it seems like it did, well, I mean, they died from Crystal as opposed to dying from Big Robot, which is, I think, a step up. Really should have waited to use that grenade, as you can see there. That's fine, though. Look at that. I will never overcome my grenade addiction. I am unrepentant. These big fights are what make this area so much fun. I don't know, the crazier the fight, the more I love it, it seems. You just really get this sense of mobility and deadly power as you progress. At least I did. See how those little guys can dogpile you. In your Game Plus, that would have been that. I would have died right there. This level's pretty bad about having crystals obscure the way and having that be the way they conceal their secret passages, which works fine. The skulls don't the skeletons are clearly different than raccoon skeletons. I wonder if those were enemy occupying forces, or if they were meant to be, I don't know, people like me, like the Drifter from someplace else. I don't actually know what the deal is there. Evidently I hadn't switched quite off to 60 FPS yet. Again, I'm really sorry for that. It won't be an issue again. And there we have our 8th module. And with that, we are ready to tackle the final 8-part area after we get the last key. And this comes just a little bit to the west of the warp point, as you can see there. So easy to miss. Appears to be a fairly technologically advanced area. I'm not sure if their cannons used the pink explosive powder or liquid or what, but they were geared up and ready for the invasion from who knows where. Alright, this is the ultimate challenge of this area, as the 8 module doors tend to be, and I just don't like it at all. It's fine, whatever. I'll tell you why when we go through this door, in fact. Again, the fact that it went fairly well for me this time should not blind you to the dangers and the damages of it. So it's just an enormous long serpentine corridor filled with these friggin' things. The trick here, and although it didn't quite work for me there, is if you run right into a wall, then the invincibility frames from it knocking you backwards will shield you against damage. You can see that there. I used it to avoid damage there. Those little crystal guys run faster, so you either have to slow them down or, do something. Otherwise, they'll trigger the spikes, and even if you're dashing, they'll make you die. Dashing a lot is a good thing. I swear, every time I do this on that lower passage there, something happens to make me stop dashing. I don't know if the camera gets wonky, but I just cannot dash through that lower area without it stopping. Having grenades is more or less a requirement for this back area in here, just to give you enough time to inject yourself. That was the pistol, by the way, that I got from the crystal boss. Just fires a big old ball of plasma that does, I think, 3 damage. So not bad at all. Considering how it's gone for me in ages past. That was relatively painless, as you saw. That blood don't quite look good. And we get a new sword, drone, and outfit out of the bargain, so we'll be wearing that next time with pride. And there's nothing for it but to just leave the area there. And there's a bit more, but that was really the challenge. I know, again, because it was so short, it looked fine, but the shortness really hurts it as well, because if you have to redo that one stupid room, 10 times or whatever, by the way, if this was New Game Plus, I would certainly not have survived that. You can't take one hit from the crystals on New Game Plus. So it can be very frustrating, especially if, the dodging is pretty good, but it doesn't always work quite like you'd like it to. Now, that is using PC control. Maybe with the gamepad or something it would be better, but for PC, it's frustration city, I'll say that. So I think that's just about, once we get everything else that they have to plunder down here, it for this western area. Now, there's a few things that have unlocked since we've beaten this area, and the southern area remains to challenge us as well, but we are well on our way to the end game here. And, again, got all of our tips and tricks, so everything from here on out is just going to be harder challenges and getting better at it. And also, again, I'll be recording in 30 FPS to avoid any of the issues we had this time. I do want to say, playing this through again has been just as enjoyable as it was the first time. It's one of those games you really look forward to go back and play. The new update also released kind of a boss rush, so that's something I'll be showing off. There's a few things in town that I'll be showing off before I begin the southern update. Obviously, we've got the sneak peek at the western area here that we'll be doing. Really should have made that shot. The pistol's good. I'll show it off more in future things, certainly. I didn't think you could get me through the fort over there. And there's our monolith. A fitting end. So that's pretty much the western area. Thanks for watching, everybody. I was glad I was able to show off the boss in something like good time for you. I hope you continue to enjoy the game, and I will catch you next time when we take on the southern area and just show off a couple little extras, including the soccer goblin.